We were the frontier, the pioneers. And that pioneer spirit is under attack by a government that wants to control every aspect of our life, from our education, our healthcare, our businesses that are overregulated, all stifling our growth and our freedoms. I'm Dr. Monica Wehby, and I'm running for the United States Senate. I'm not a politician. I'm not part of the establishment. I'm a doctor who's devoted my entire career to treating very sick children and to helping families at the most vulnerable times in their lives. Every day, I talk with parents who may be worried about their job, their finances, their ability to pay for health care, but who push all those worries aside to focus only on doing what it takes to care for their loved ones. In our government, people don't sit, look at all the data, and put it all together and come up with a solution to the problem. Everybody has their own positions and sides and argue about things rather than solve the problem. And I think that's something that as physicians we can bring that's different. Oregonians deserve a voice in their government, a voice they aren't getting because career politicians are out of touch. They don't listen. They don't see it. As I talk to small business owners, they're very concerned about all the new regulations that are coming into place, the new laws and new taxes. They don't know whether to invest and grow their business or whether to hold back and wait and see what's happening. No, it actually kind of plays into exactly what you're saying. You know, I worry that our children aren't going to have the same opportunities that we had growing up, the opportunities to achieve their dreams. I mean, this is a perfect example here.
Yeah.
I decided I could either fret and complain as we go from bad to worse, or do what I've always done my entire life, roll up my sleeves and get to work. Every day, I see the very best of who we Oregonians really are, our strength, our commitment to our family and our friends, our willingness to make whatever sacrifice is necessary to care for those we love. I know that running for the U.S. Senate is going to be a challenging endeavor, but I believe that together we will win. So I ask you to join with me to make Oregon and our country a better place to work, live, and raise a family.
Woo! Yeah!
So again, I just want to say thank you all for coming tonight to a much awaited event for YCO. We're honored to host a discussion about Obamacare and expose the lies that our politicians and progressives have shamelessly sold us. Every day in the news, we hear more and more Obamacare signups and surges, recently reaching up to 30,000. What they're not so quick to tell you is 4.5 to 5 million Americans that have lost their coverage because of Obamacare. The lack of signups on this disastrous website that has been proven to be unsafe and overpriced, and a corrupt deal that was passed along party lines with not even one opposition vote. The lack of effort the president has put into his own bill and the saddening impact it causes to average Americans is unprecedented, and has left Americans scrambling to find new coverage, hoping to find something that works for themselves and their family.
Tonight we host an individual who has had firsthand knowledge and experience with the most disastrous piece of legislation in recent history. Monica Wehby is a Portland neurosurgeon who has invested so much in Oregon through her various positions and extensive background. In the past, she has been president of the Oregon Medical Association, trustee for the American Medical Association, and director of the American Association of Neurological Surgeons. Currently, she continues to devote much of her time to caring for children through her roles as the director of pediatric neurosurgery at Randall Children's Hospital, trustee for the Ronald McDonald House Charities, and other various board positions throughout Oregon. We're so very excited to host her, so please help us welcome U.S. Senate candidate Monica Wehby.
We just had one more candidate walk into the room.
Tim.
You want to introduce yourself? Okay, I was good letting everybody say hi.
Thank you, Monica.
Just tell them who you are and what you're running for.
Hi, I'm Tim McMenamin. I'm running for State Representative, House District 41. For those of you that can help me out, that's over in East and Westmoreland, Selwood, Milwaukee, Oak Grove area. And so this is my second run, and I just kept going from the first one. So anyway, thank you, Monica.
Well, I'm Monica Wehby, and running for U.S. Senate, and grateful that all of you guys came out here with it so cold. I do want to let you know that we do have our tracker that comes with us everywhere from the Merkley campaign, and just so that you guys know that what you're saying might be recorded, well, is being recorded. So, yeah, back there, our friend back there is just so that you know. I just don't want you to be surprised later.
Tell Jenny Burdick I said hi.
But anyway, how many of you guys are graduating at the end of the year? Any of you guys graduating? How many of you think you're going to have a job in the area that you want? How many of you have friends that graduated and are not going to be able to find a job? Okay, so it's a big concern that we have. When I go around from place to place, going all over the state now, talking with different groups of people, the first question I always ask is, do you think your children are going to have the same opportunities that you had when you were a kid? And it's usually people, you know, my age or so. Nobody ever raises their hand. So we're all very concerned about what's going on. We're all concerned about your future. As a physician, I sit every day in my office and I see patients and families come through. And, you know, illness doesn't discriminate. We see all sorts of people from all ranges of society. And everybody has the same general anxiety and the same feelings and concerns across the board. There's almost a sort of a depression, a resolution that things are not going quite the way that we want them to. They're worried about their job. They're worried about the economy. They don't know, you know, our small businesses are really overregulated. They don't know what's going to happen. Our businesses don't know whether to hunker down and keep their resources close. They don't know whether to hire more. We've got all these new taxes, all these new mandates coming through. People don't quite know what to do. We're worried about our debt. You know, we're borrowing 40 cents on every dollar that we're spending now. My youngest son, or my oldest son, just left for college. And as he's walking away, I'm worried about how much debt he's going to have when he finishes. And then, you know, it's like being a family, running up your credit card with more money than you make a year, leaving it on the credit card and passing it off to your son and say, here you go, Jake, pay it off. Good luck. I'm glad I don't have to pay it. And that's what's happening now with our debt. It's just, we've got to get some sort of a control over this crazy spending that's going on. What about our taxes? We've got to lower taxes on our small businesses and on our middle-class families. We need a more fair tax system. Right now, people that can hire the accountants or hire the attorneys can game the system and do much better than those of us who can't. And by the way, there are 20 new taxes or increases in taxes with the new health care law. And then patients are all worried about health care. One of the nurses in our hospital who works part-time was telling me that, you know, she said, gosh, you know, Dr. Wehby, my premiums doubled, my deductibles doubled. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I can afford it. So I called the navigator, asked her what I should do. And the navigator told her, he said, well, you should probably quit your second job. And if you made less money, you could get a subsidy or you could have another baby. And neither of those were good options for her, so she's really concerned about her health care. I'm a pediatric neurosurgeon, as you heard, and nobody ever comes to a neurosurgeon with a minor problem, okay? It's a neurosurgery by nature. It's usually something pretty significant. And when you have a child that's sick or that needs a pediatric neurosurgeon, this is really a crisis time in your life. And that's when you see the best and worst of people, is when they're at a time of crisis. And these parents will do anything to take care of their baby. They'll do whatever it takes. I don't know how many times I've heard, if only I could take that problem from my baby, if only I could do that. This is what makes me so proud to be an Oregonian and so proud to see what people are like. And when they trust me, when they hand me this baby to take back to the operating room to operate on their brain tumor or their spinal cord, they're giving me the most precious thing in their life and trusting me with that. And that's a true honor, and that's the way that I will handle this job as a U.S. Senator, with that sort of respect and that sort of determination and care. I've been running now for about 5 weeks for this position, and you talk to a lot of reporters. And so one of the reporters called me and said, Dr. Wehby, what's wrong with Senator Merkley? Why are you running against Senator Merkley? And I said, well, tried to stay kind of general because, you don't want to be too critical of anybody. Your mom always tells you not to say anything bad. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, right? All of your mothers tell you that. And so, no? So I tried to stay kind of general, right? Okay, so I said, well, he's a career politician. Career politicians tend to lose touch. That a career politician, the most important thing is getting reelected again. And so they get beholden to special interest groups, and then the most important thing is to get reelected. It's that power, and that's what they care about, because what are they going to do if they don't get elected? If you're a career politician, what are you going to do when you're done? So that's one of the main issues. The second is, we all know how polarized things have gotten in the government now. This country has never been as divided as it is now. People, pitted against each other for race, religion, sexual preference, whatever, all these different divisions now. And whenever you have a problem, it's always because of somebody else. Anything that goes wrong, you've got to be blaming the other side, It's always somebody else's fault. And I believe Jeff Merkley's part of this problem. He was voted or ranked by the National Journal as the most liberal senator in the Senate. And that was done by his votes. We're talking left of Harry Reid, okay? And so when you're that extreme, you're not representing our state, because our state is not that extreme. Our state is really quite purple. Actually, we're pretty much a red state with a couple of blue islands, but we are, not the most extreme, not as extreme as Jeff Merkley. And then finally, we've just got such dysfunction in Congress. I don't think anybody will tell you that things are working well out there. And we're not solving the big problems. We're not dealing with Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. We've got all of these entitlement programs, all these commitments that we've made to people. And what's going to happen when we don't handle these problems and put our head in the sand and pretend like everything's okay? These programs are going to be insolvent. And those of us, when we get a little bit older and need them, they're not going to be there. And he said, well, the reporter asked me, why don't you be a little bit more specific, Dr. Wehby? Why don't you get a little bit more specific about what it is? What would you do differently than Senator Merkley's doing? And I thought about it, and I said, well, Jeff joined with 6 of his fellow Democrats and wrote a letter to the IRS asking them to investigate groups based on their political interests, their political leanings. Probably wouldn't do that. And you all remember the IRS or the NSA scandal, the spy scandal that was it broke, a couple months ago. And Jeff was real critical that they were never informed about this, and nobody was there. Nobody ever told Congress what was going on. But actually, they did have a meeting where the Congress was informed, and Jeff left to go be on a hardball on a talk show, so he missed the NSA briefing about what was going on. I probably wouldn't do that. And then when it comes to healthcare, I think the most important thing that we can expect from our political leaders is some honesty and some transparency. So I don't think I would have handled it the way that that was handled either. This healthcare law is the most significant piece of legislation that we're going to have that's come through in decades and in the past generation. It is going to affect 1/6 of our economy. It affects every single American. It affects the job market. It's going to affect your ability to get a job. It's going to affect the cost of health care, your access to health care, and the quality of the care that you're going to get. Let's talk a little bit about this law, since that's why a lot of you guys are out here today. Now, the goals of that healthcare law were laudable. It's great. You know, the goal was to have access to health care for everybody at an affordable cost. But instead of doing this in a stepwise way, the way that most of you guys as students and as scientists or rational people would do, where you take one step at a time, you look at the problems and you change whatever the problem is with a proven method, they did a massive overhaul instead, created a massive bureaucracy, this massive government takeover of 1/6 of our economy. The Congressional Budget Office says now that by 2023, there's still going to be 33 million people that don't have health care insurance, and that's going to be after spending $1.8 trillion. We all heard that same mantra. If you like your insurance plan, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. Premiums are going to go down $2,500 per family. Well, we found out now that the bureaucrats in Washington knew 3 years ago that that wasn't the case. They knew that millions of people were going to lose their insurance. They knew that 150,000 Oregonians were going to be losing their insurance. Why did these people lose their plans? Why are these millions of people losing their plans? Well, that's the reason is that the government has decided what's important in your health care plan. You can't make those decisions as to what's important. They are telling you now what the essential health benefits are. And those are things like maternity care for everybody, including men, pediatric care, pediatric dental and vision care, even if you're a couple in your 60s or 70s and you're not going to have any kids, you're still going to have to pay for that in the essential benefit package. You're going to have to pay for substance abuse treatment, even if you're a total teetotaler and you've never had a glass of alcohol in your life. These are all the essential benefits that are included and that have to be paid for and have to be included in every single plan. Now, I mean, clearly those are not benefits that are benefiting the purchaser. That's just cost shifting. And by making everybody buy all of these unnecessary parts of the plan that they don't want or don't need, you're basically subsidizing people that have more costly conditions. Now, you know, Senator Merkley will tell you, gee, you know, I didn't really know that this was coming up. You know, this was so either he knew about this and participated in the deception willingly, or he voted for a bill that he didn't know what was in it. Either way, he's not really representing Oregon, not really doing what we sent him there to do. Okay, and then there was a second step in this. You know, in 2010, Senator Enzi from Wyoming brought this up, this one specific issue, and said, look, you know, all these millions of people are going to lose their insurance coverage because it doesn't meet this essential benefit package. They had a chance to fix it then, and again, they didn't take that opportunity, they voted it down. So that's the first, what should we call it? Deception, okay? The second was, if you like your doctor, you can keep it. We're finding out now that that's not the case, okay? Because in order to keep premiums down, insurance companies are going to have to limit their panels. So basically, they send out, you know, the panels for bid. You know, they'll tell doctors, okay, we'll pay you whatever, 75% of Medicare, whatever, you know, and then they're going to try to low bid out the services so that
only certain doctors will be able to sign up on the panel, and that's done to keep the costs low. Only certain hospitals will be on your panels. And so even if you have insurance, you may not have access to the doctor that you've come to know. You may not have insurance that allows you to go to the hospital that you've always gone to. So having insurance and having access are two totally different things. You've all heard, one of the most controversial parts of this bill is the IPAB. Has anybody heard of the IPAB? The Independent Payment Advisory Board. What that is a panel of 15 people whose sole purpose is to cut the cost of Medicare. And the only way that they can cut the cost is by cutting what they're going to pay providers. And so as you continue to cut providers, Medicare already, the doctors already have to limit how many Medicare patients they can take because they already have to subsidize those patients with doctors that, or with patients that have commercial insurance or private insurance because the government doesn't pay enough for you to take care of those Medicare patients. And this is continuing to drop and continuing to drop. And then by January 2014, unless something's done, doctors are going to have an additional 25% cut, which is huge. Because over the last 10 years, doctors' reimbursement by Medicare has not kept up with inflation. And so it's been less and less and less. And so doctors are continuing to restrict how many Medicare patients that they can see. It's just that you just can't stay in business if you have a high percentage of Medicare patients because you have to subsidize those patients by others. What about the cost of your premiums now? What about the cost of your premiums from your insurance now? 80% of people under 30 are going to have an increase in their premiums now with the health care law. And the reason for this is that the young, healthy people have to sign up. Because if the young, healthy people don't sign up, there's nobody to help pay for the older, sicker people. So it's all, again, this cost shifting. You used to hear, all the time about when you go to the hospital, you pay $5 for an aspirin and you're all this, the people with insurance pay for the people that don't pay. You're actually just going to be doing that right up front now. That's basically what's happening. And this is really what amounts to generational theft. I really think it's just inappropriate to expect people your age, people that are young, just starting out, you're coming out, you've got your debt from college, you're trying to start a family, you're trying to buy a house, all these things going on. And then they're going to be expecting you to pay more than you need to be paying to help fund this entire system. And again, I mentioned that there were 20 new taxes in this law. What's it going to do to the jobs and what's it going to do to the economy? There are mandates now on businesses that if you have 50 employees or more, you have to provide health insurance for those employees or pay a fine of $2,000 per employee, okay? Full-time employee is considered 30-hour work week, not 40. 30-hour work week is considered a full-time employee. This really upset the AFL-CIO, the unions, the big supporters. They were big supporters of this bill when it was coming through. They said that this is now going to be the death of the 40-hour work week because people are only allowing people to work less than 30 hours so that they don't count as a full-time employee, which goes to their 50 employee total, which means that they have to buy insurance for everybody. So this has been a big problem. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce said that 71% of small businesses said now it's going to be more difficult for them to hire. And then the regulations in this law are just insane. The original bill was 2,700 pages long. The original bill that passed, that nobody read because it was 2,700 pages long. Now there's 20,000 pages of regulations with the health care law. It stands 7 feet tall.
Wonderful.
If you stack those pieces of paper one on top of the other. So basically what Obamacare is a redistribution of wealth from young, healthy people like yourselves to pay for others who are at a point in their life where they do have more economic resources. But one thing that's encouraging to me is that you guys really aren't buying it. We just had a study that came out, this Harvard study came out last year looking at millennials, the 18 to 29-year-olds, which all of you except for a few of us fit into that category. This study said that 57% disapprove of the health care law of Obamacare. Also, only 25% of the uninsured millennials plan to enroll in the health care law. And then it doesn't stop there. You can see here as well, disapproval of the way President Obama is handling Syria, 60%. The economy, 61%. Iran, 56%. The healthcare system, 61%. And then the federal budget deficit, a whopping 66%. And then overall Obama approval rating, 54% disapproval of the way Obama's handling his job. There are better ways to fix the healthcare system. Okay, we didn't have to do this massive overhaul without doing it in a stepwise fashion. It's better to look at the individual problems and fix individual problems with proven methods that work rather than just throw the whole system out and put an experimental system in place. Okay? One way to do it is allow people to buy health insurance with pre-tax dollars. That way the person owns the policy. They're not tied to their business. You can increase health savings accounts. This allows you to put money in, pre-tax dollars in for a health savings account. Actually, what the health care law does drops that amount down to $2,500. So used to be we could put $5,000 in, now they've dropped it down to $2,500. And what we should be doing is allowing people to put away money pre-tax for the health savings accounts. You should be able to buy insurance across state lines. When you make it where you can only buy insurance in one state, the prices are higher because there's not the competition. You should allow people to buy only catastrophic plans if that's what they want, with a high deductible. Let them buy that. It's just like, the health care law with all these essential benefits, that's a benefit package. That's like buying car insurance that covers your tires, your oil changes, your gas. I mean, that's basically what all these extra things are. It's not like just covering for when you have a big accident, it's everything else. We can have high-risk pools, which a lot of states, did have prior to this law coming into place, where people who were at high risk were all in this same pool. And then medical liability reform is huge. I mean, we spend billions of dollars a year. Some people estimate up to 20% of our healthcare costs is what we call defensive medicine, where, you'll order extra tests because you're afraid that, even though you don't really think they need it, but there's a 1 in 1,000 chance that this might be the problem, and if you don't order the scan, you're going to get sued, kind of thing. A lot of this is defensive medicine, and there was really no significant liability reform in the healthcare law. They put a $50 million in there for trial projects. So the thing about this healthcare law is, we really should have have people that know what they're talking about designing this law. We had 2 doctors in the Senate at the time, and they were totally boxed out, didn't have anything to do with it. Dr. Coe and Dr. Barrasso were the 2 senators at the time, and they said they had no input at all. And this is, I'm kind of partial to the 405 bridge, the Fremont Bridge there. We got a lot of bridges out here, but I drive over that twice a day, if not more, coming back in for call. But usually twice a day, back and forth. I'm kind of partial to that bridge, and if that bridge fell down, I would want some civil engineers, structural engineers putting it back together who do it every day and know what they're talking about, not just some people that like to read about it. Same kind of thing with the healthcare law. I don't want people that just like to study it or talk about it or read about it. I want people that know what they're talking about. And that would be a big help. So for you guys, I asked the question, who owns your future? You guys are all young and getting ready to start out your lives, and who owns your future? Jeff would has shown that he, by, supporting this ACA and a lot of heavy regulations, he believes that DC, big government, should shape your future and dictate your choices. I don't believe that. I believe in the individual. I believe in families. I believe that we know what's best for us. I believe that we don't want to be micromanaged by the government. We want to decide what kind of car we want to drive, what kind of energy we want to use, what sort of health insurance we want to buy. We don't want this dictated by the government. This government overreach is really causing problems with the economy. It's making it difficult for us to get going again. It affects self-esteem by limiting opportunities for our kids, for you guys. Everybody knows that if you can't get a job early on, it damages your self-esteem. And this is also exacerbating the income inequality because jobs are not available, because businesses can't grow. Thomas Jefferson, this problem's been around, clearly for a long time. Thomas Jefferson said that when people fear government, we have tyranny. When government fears the people, you have liberty. I'm so thrilled to see a group of college Republicans, especially in Portland. It's amazing. It gives me hope. My youngest son asked me, he said, Mom, we were talking about this race and whether or not to jump into the Senate race. And my son said, Mom, why would you leave a job that you worked until you were 35 years old to do? We train, nursery, you train till you're 35. And Dr. Grew back there can confirm that. Train until you're 35 years old to be a neurosurgeon. And I've got everything, going well. I love my practice. I love my patients. He said, why would you give that up when everybody loves you to take a job where people say mean things about you all the time? And the reason for that is that I really, honestly, think I can help. Doctors have a different way of looking at a problem. We don't do it the same way as attorneys. We don't do it the same way as career politicians. The first thing you learn in medical school, they tell you, is listen to the patient. If you listen to the patient, they will tell you what the problem is. So the first thing that we do is listen. The second thing we do is look at data. We look at the scans, we look at the lab data. And when we do all of that, we can figure out what the problem is. And once we can figure out what the problem is, then we can solve it and we can move ahead and find an answer. That's not happening right now. Doctors make decisions based on logic and evidence, not on ideology and emotion. Okay, you have to be very practical to move ahead and make these decisions. So like you, who got out here in this bitter cold, single digit probably by now, you're doing this because you care about this country and because you want to make a difference. I am reminded of one of my favorite quotes from Teddy Roosevelt. You guys have probably heard this, called The Arena, The Man in the Arena. Have any of you heard it, or are you all too young? And it reminded me of you guys when I was thinking about this coming out tonight. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never know victory nor defeat. So I'm so happy to see that you guys are out and trying to make a difference and trying to change things and to try to own your own future. ever since, you know, I'm not that old, but I'm kind of old. I'm as old as your parents, okay, most of your parents. And ever since September 11th, I can't hear and sing the national anthem without stopping and getting choked up to some degree. Because it's in our DNA, is who we are. And did any of you guys ever hear the story of where our national anthem came from? Do they still teach you guys that in school? Did you remember? Fort McHenry. It was a war of 1812. And the British Royal Navy was along the Atlantic coast. They were attacking all along the coast. They had taken the White House. You know, they were coming down the coast, and the commander of the British Royal Navy was now had his sights set on Fort McHenry, which was the last stronghold. And our patriots there had a big flag. The biggest flag ever made was flying up over the Fort McHenry. And they kept this flag up because it was the last sign of freedom. And the British Royal Navy commander called over, sent the message, said, look, if you guys take that flag down, I won't keep bombarding you, okay? But the Patriots did not want to take the flag down because they knew if they took the flag down that it was over. So all through the night, they kept this flag up and they kept getting bombarded. And Francis Scott Key was on one of those ships and was watching this happen. And Francis Scott Key was a captive and he was out in the water and could see. And there was a lot of dust and smoke. And he says, the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. By the morning, the flag was still there. And there were all the bodies of these young men that had held that flag up all night because they were not going to let that flag down. They would rather die than lose that freedom. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? We've got to get this country back. The Republican Party is the party of opportunity and optimism. We've got to let people know that. And I hope you will help me win this race against Jeff Merkley. Thank you.
First off, I would like to thank you folks for actually making sense. A lot of times you listen to politicians and they don't make much sense.
That's because
I'm sorry, it's just true, politicians don't make sense.
But I'm talking more and more, I'm like turning into one.
My question is though this, and I'm just for clarity's sake, I'm not a supporter of the Affordable Act.
Right.
I'm not a supporter of that, so just
Well, it's not all bad. There's some
well, yeah, but I just like to be clear about things. One of the problems that I see with it, and I hope you can address this, is that there's not enough communication about alternatives. What can we do differently than what's out there? I'm a firm believer that if you educate the people and say, we can do this differently, and this is how we can do it differently, and they see that and they go, yeah, that over there doesn't work. We already know that.
Right.
And this over here is a good choice. What can we do, what can you do, and what can we do to offer an alternative that will make those people who are actually now supporting it say, no, I'm not going to even support that anymore. I'm going to go over here with a winning plan.
Right. There was actually a good plan, back before this passed. This passed in 2010. Ron Wyden, the other Oregon senator, is a friend of mine, and I was president of the Medical Association at the time. Worked with him on his plan, which actually was budget positive. It was a free market-based approach, and that's the way that things could be done. You have to, that we outlined several steps of how to do this. And it's frustrating, because Tom Coburn has put out a plan, Tom Price has put out a plan. I know there's 8 or 10 plans that all have the same basic core elements in there, which are basically, let people buy whatever policy they want. Some people want all the bells and whistles, some people don't. Some people prefer to have a high deductible and a high premium or low premiums. People want different things. You allow them to buy that, allow everybody a basic coverage, let them buy up if they want. Let them buy with their own pre-tax dollars. Let them, that way they own the policy. You're not stuck in a job that you don't like because you can't get away. You let them put money away in a health savings account, pre-tax. And you don't limit that, and you let it go from family member to family member. You let them pass it down from generation to generation, save this money and use it. You let people buy just that catastrophic policy if that's what they want. How many of us have, all these insurance plans and we never go get our routine mammograms or our routine whatever, it covers all sorts of things that you don't necessarily take use of. There's 7 or 8 different things that we can do, and there are plans that can work and that can cover people without the expense that this is.
I gotta say, guys, that was almost 4 minutes of making sense,
It almost makes sense.
Of making sense, I'm really, maybe I'm getting really jaded with the whole system, but I don't hear that kind of common sense.
But
A lot of times, like when I watch the news on any of them, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, when these guys come on television, they don't get to the point of it like you just did, and I appreciate
had to be
that.
done. The cost was going out of control. We couldn't leave things the way we were. We all agree with that. And we all want everybody covered. We all have the same goals. There's just different ways of getting at it. And the goal is to have access for everybody that can still be affordable. Anybody else have?
One of the things that you spoke about is division in Congress.
Right.
From where I'm sitting, there's a lot of division in the Republican Party, and none more so was better highlighted than a couple of months ago with regards to Obamacare. And it seems that there seem to be two schools of thought forming. One that says, well, no matter the politics, we're going to stand up and we're going to make a fuss about this because we've got the American people on our side and we need to get the people engaged. Whereas the other group seems to kind of fall for the bullying of the other side and say, oh, no, now's not a good time. Now's not a good time. Let's, wait down the road. And I just wonder if you had been a senator then, or if the same sort of issues, they'll almost certainly come up in the future, where would you kind of fall in that? Would you maybe be, depends on the issue, or I'm just curious.
I think that you'd be hard-pressed to find a Republican that doesn't think there's a lot of problems with this bill. I mean, again, the part of the problem was that it was passed through strictly with one party votes, okay? And so when, that people see things differently, and when you only look from one side and you don't take into account the concerns of the other side, then you have problems, and that's exactly what happened here. The only thing bipartisan about the health care law was opposition to it. And so what's happening now, I think, the Republican Party still, would like, to have a health care system that works. And I think they all agree on the same goal. They just have different strategies and different tactics. And it's important, you bring up a very good point, it's important that the Republican Party comes together. Because if we don't all come together and work together, we are never going to get anywhere. It's that divide and conquer thing, And so I think we all have to get together on, the goals are the same. I mean, everybody will tell you that their goal is the same. We've just got to be a little smarter about our strategy.
I just had a question. So from a recent poll on Politico, there was during the government shutdown, there was a 4%, only 4% of the people polled said that replacing every single member of Congress would make things worse. So, following that up.
That's good for us.
Yeah, the public opinion seems to be very negative towards Congress at the moment.
That's right.
Because of an inability to work together and get things done, and reaching across the aisle, with Republicans working to repeal it, repealing Obamacare 40+ times. I was just curious, what would you do different than Merkley to promote bipartisan efforts?
I think the first thing you have to do is start the conversation and be willing to talk to the other side. There's always common ground. We all want everybody to be taken care of. I don't think there's anybody that would say they don't want people to have health care. Okay, so you find the common ground. You don't have to compromise your principles, but you have to find what everybody agrees on and work from there. If you are at the extreme of either side, you're not going to be in the room when the decisions are made, okay? Because you're just way out there, way to the right, way to the left. If you're way out on the extremes, you're not part of the solution. The people that come up with the solutions are always the people that can listen to the other side. Diversity is important, diversity of thought, diversity of issues. Everybody comes from a different background. Everybody has different experiences. And if you don't take into account all these different experiences and all the input from all different sides, then you're going to get blindsided by a problem that you didn't expect. You don't want to be in an echo chamber. Any smart businessman will tell you that on their board, they put people from all different backgrounds and people that see things differently, because that's the way you come up with solutions and that's the way you move ahead. If you always are in the echo chamber of everybody saying the same thing, you don't move ahead.
I just had a question. There's a Senator Merkley
You did a beautiful
spot.
job on your introduction.
Oh,
by
thank
the
you.
way.
There's a spot for Senator Merkley. I see on that chair there, the empty chair,
Oh.
who was invited to speak tonight, but instead chose to send a note taker here, which I think is highly symbolic of his tenure as a U.S. Senator, who doesn't represent the other 50% of Oregon. And this is the problem. Like she said, we're a purple state. You know, we have islands of blue, but if you're going to be an Oregon senator, you have to work with both sides. And just as his act today for not coming out tonight to a generous and gracious request from the candidate, Dr. Wehby, and Vice Chair, it really highlights his problem with reaching out to the rural communities in Oregon and representing, Eugene and Portland, the population centers of the state, and basically saying, screw everyone else in the state. Thank you.
Please take them with us. Thank you all so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. It is Saturday night and you are here, but at least you got some free food. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So on Second Amendment issues, a lot of people are talking about that, and of course, any candidate that runs are really concerned about that.
Yeah, well, we're obviously strong supporters of the Second Amendment. I think that we've got enough laws on the books. We need to enforce the laws that we have. And that the issues more now at this point are mental health and safety issues. And that we need to enforce the laws we have, see how things go, and take it from there.
Right. No, it's about making insurance companies rich, you know. And
They're getting pretty hard now, though. I'm telling you, with all this. I think you were going from one scapegoat to another. So see, now they're attacking the insurance companies, and I think next they'll be attacking physicians.
Oh, yeah.
Because so they're attacking now insurance companies if they don't want to go back and reoffer plans that they said were substandard and all this stuff. You know, they were bad mouthing these plans.
Right.